What is a woman?
Amongst 10,000 fractal paradigms in a post-constructivist matrix. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Brother man, in the Nubian cosmos, a woman transcends amongst multifaceted kaleidoscopes, amongst 10,000 ancestral vibrations. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Man, we all know what a woman is. A woman is a...
What is a woman?
A woman is an adult female with almost always 2 X chromosomes. Brother man,
you a
sellout.
I'm a straight Democrat, but I'm for the best person.
Oh, yes,
but
sir.
Now, why you got Donald Trump?
Because I paid attention in school when I was a kid. I know the true history of both the Republican and Democratic Party. I know that they really didn't switch.
Duh.
During the Nixon Southern strategy, that one became more clever than the other in dealing with black people. We the Democrats, we were the Republicans' friends. We was their friends, but we were the Democrats.
Her head explodes.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me, if you are asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none. Not even one will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But I asked
This
not
quota
about
system
illegal
failed.
immigrants. I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the Commission president, says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we had not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland, and we can be called populists, nationalists, racists, I don't care.
Well, that clears that up.
In phases 1, 2, and 3, they did what no other studio could do. That every time a new Marvel movie was coming out, we all expected it to be great. We would go into the theaters not wondering if it would be great. We used to go into the theaters expecting, like it was magic. And since Endgame, that magic is gone. We've gone from expecting it would be great to hoping it'll be good.
And the Disney stock just keeps going down and down, and Bob Iger is what's going on with that stock?
Who's racist? Trump. Now tell me what makes him racist.
The fact that he called for the public execution of the 5 Central Park motherfuckers even before they went to trial.
Let's say your daughter gets raped.
I'm looking to kill them motherfuckers.
Let's say your daughter gets raped, right? Now, I happen to be in the area because I was wilding, I was robbing people, harassing people. Your daughter gets raped, she's beat so bad that she can't even remember what happened.
She can't even function.
Police arrest me for being in the area, and I admit to doing that to your daughter, right? How would you feel? How would you feel? Answer the question. How would you feel? How would you feel? What did you say right before, just now, right before I let you finish? What you say? No, you said you want to kill a motherfucker.
Right.
Is that what you said?
Right.
Yo, if you admit to raping somebody, whether you did it or not, you should never admit it to. And the fact that you did is okay for me to feel like that. Now, you can say Trump is insensitive for not apologizing after finding out that they didn't rape him. But at that moment, he had all right to feel like that. Just like you feel the same way.
She was stunned.
Why did you argue that religious services, religious people pose a greater risk of infection than people gathered to argue for defunding the police?
The policies restricted all types of activity in the district.
All types of activity in the district?
Yes, Senator.
Did it restrict mass protests in the district?
I don't believe it said anything one way or another.
Of course it did, because it didn't accept mass protests. If you want to come and protest, defund the police, if you want to support that, that's fine. You can gather en masse, person to person, close up, thousands of people. That's okay. You know the facts. You were a good lawyer. Why'd you lose?
Senator.
Oh, come on, Judge. Don't make me do this. Mayor Bowser was going to mass protests herself personally with thousands of people. At the same time she was doing that, she was prohibiting churches from gathering socially distanced outside wearing masks.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is what Reagan later meant by "we are a shining city on a hill." All right, everybody. Welcome to the Conservative Take. My name is Kyle, and welcome to the show tonight. It's been an interesting weekend. I don't know what you guys think for yourselves, but for me, it's just been a lot, and I have a lot of material to cover tonight. A ton of it. So what I'm going to do is, first off, welcome everybody. And second off, I'm going to try and give you a rundown of the segments that we have here. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Trump third term tease, and we're going to start off with that, and we're going to spend a lot of time on that, actually. And within that, I'm actually going to talk about something that I'm probably going to levy to the end and maybe even offer a 30-minute private, locals only, sponsors video. It's going to be an evergreen, and I'll go ahead and spoil it right now. I'm thinking about talking about really quickly. I put this all out here right now. So after this is all over, I'm thinking around, let's say 10:30ish Eastern Standard Time, thinking about putting together a top 5 list and the honorable mentions of the worst of the top 5 greatest second terms for any president. Now, of course, we can't include Trump in that yet because he's still in his, 8th week. But it's segueing sort of into what I'm going to talk about in terms of his third term and what that's about and why this whole thing is absolutely brilliant the more I think about it. And I think a lot of the leftists out there right now are beginning to recognize this, and they're freaking out about this. So that's the first segment. We'll cover probably 30 minutes, no problem there, maybe even 40 minutes. And we're going to get into, this is all messed up. Who did this? All right, my notes are all messed up. All right. I'll have to rearrange this. I have it over here. So the second segment is going to be essentially on Snow White. So Snow White is going to be the big deal there because it's actually tanking at the box office. But I'm going to take it at a different angle than what most people are talking about. When I realized that the Snow White story goes back to 1812, it's a Grimm's fairy tale based on a folklore piece, but it's an allegory about Christianity, and it's fascinating. We put an article out on our locals. You can see it right now if you want. And we're going to kind of cover that as well. And other people talk about the box office issues it's having, which is pretty severe. And lastly, we're going to talk about one more thing that I find pretty appalling, and that is the ghetto congresswoman from Texas, Crockett, how she is referring to Byron Donalds, who's I guess he's a congressman or he's a senator. She called him out on this. It would have been Charlemagne, the Lower G God show, The Breakfast Club, basically called the guy a token because he married a white woman. So I'm going to go over some numbers that are out there as to why she's a complete idiot. Obviously, we're talking about the fact that they ignore 100% all of the interracial couples that are going on in their party, particularly with, let's say, Don Lemon, with Kamala Harris, and on and on and on. And they just don't seem to care about calling their people out. But when it comes to a black man who is running for governor of Florida, all of a sudden, that has to be a problem. So I'm just trying to go through my notes here. Somehow, this is just really, really bad. I'm going to have to go off my other notes here because this is something just happened with my printer. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Here we go. Yeah, that's what happened. It went backwards. Okay. All right, we'll do it this way. I got it right here. So instead of starting at page 1, it actually started on page 6. All right, let's just trash that. We won't need that. All right. So if you guys want to comment at all, just jump on the segment here to the live chat, and I will come over and I will comment there, and I will answer your questions as we get into this. So let me just first jump in here and show you some segments that we saw here on X and this weekend. So I'm gonna jump over here and go to X. And check this out here. This is what the left's talking about. And you can see right now, you can just see the panic in their faces. When you see this. It's quite hysterical.
I think the biggest mistake is how failed to give credibility to Donald Trump's whims and his impulses, but we know it's true. And January 6th was a perfect example. If he says that he's not ruling it out, he's not ruling it out, and we should consider it a constitutional threat.
Okay. Susan?
He's been pushing the envelope on testing the Constitution, so I expect, that he'll continue to do that, maybe by seeking out a third term. But more importantly, short term, we're not talking about Signal and that scandal if we are talking about Trump's third term.
Don?
Yeah, I think both of them are exactly right. Steve Bannon was on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day laying out the very groundling seeds of how it's going to go down. And he said, listen, we are working on it. And by we, I mean the same people who work at the Heritage Foundation and these other well-funded, well-organized think tanks who are laying together the groundwork for things that actually come to pass and or improbable or unconstitutional. That doesn't matter to these folks, and I think you should take a third term or an effort at a third term as a legitimate campaign promise at this point.
Believe him. I think the big.
So with this is obviously this is MSNBC. They're basically freaking out, talking about Trump not ruling out a third term. Quote: "We should consider it a constitutional threat." Unquote. Come on, first of all, guys, a constitutional threat. What are you talking about? It's only a constitutional threat because you don't like the guy. If this was Obama, you'd be like, oh, fine, we can have him in for 30, 40, 50 years. They give you a problem. In fact, George Washington, which we'll talk about in another segment later on, he could still be president right now if he wanted to. If he lived long enough, he could still be president. He gave up his presidency. He gave up the power that he fought for, that he and his Continental Army struggled for over 9 years for in the cold. I mean, in the, and just in the hot weathers like the Battle of Saratoga, where people were dying of heat exhaustion. Just, smallpox was epidemic in that area of the Revolutionary War. They went through all these things, all these trials, almost had the army obliterated at the Battle of Brooklyn. Almost could have had it obliterated at the Battle of the Hessian attack. If things had gone wrong there, if Rahl, who was the commander of the Hessian army, had he read the note in his pocket, he would have known ahead of time that George Washington was coming over, and he could have taken him out right there. Many times the army could have been taken over. It didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. And through all that, he took 2 terms, and he ended up abdicating it. And every single president since then didn't do that until it came to Democrat Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And he became essentially an emperor by going 4 terms and dying in that 4th term. And so Steve Bannon confirmed on this podcast that he thinks, and they're talking about here, like think tanks like the Heritage Foundation are actively working on legal constitutional options. Trump allegedly told a journalist off camera he's not joking. This is what they're saying. And that there are methods by which he could do it, but it's too early, which is what Trump was saying. Check this out here. Check this article out here, or this particular video. This is also from, who's this from? This is from, well, I'll just play it.
President Trump called me this morning. We discussed a range of topics, including the possibility of him serving a 3rd term. He's joked about it.
I've raised a lot of money for the next race that I assume I can't use for myself, but I'm not 100% sure.
But these were his most extensive comments, yet he told me He's not joking. He said there are methods by which you could do it, but he said it's far too early to think about it. He said he's focused on his current job. At the same time, I did press him on those methods. There's been some discussion about the possibility of Vice President J.D. Vance running perhaps at the top of the ticket with President Trump running in the number 2 slot and then swapping if they were to win. President Trump telling me that is a method. He said there are other methods. I asked if he could give me details, and he said flatly, no. Now, President Trump's allies have said that they are seriously looking at this.
We're working on there. We're not prepared to talk about it publicly, but in a couple of months, I think we will be.
Here's what you need to know, though. It is incredibly complicated to change the Constitution. Serving a third term is prohibited by the Constitution.
Let me pause that. Let me go back and look at that, because that is something that I read as well. So just on the screen here, the 22nd Amendment. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of his term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding the office of the president when this article was proposed to Congress, and shall not prevent any person who may be holding the office of president or acting as president during the term within which the article becomes operative from holding the office of president or acting as president during the remainder of such term. Now, when I read that the first time, I was like, yeah, there's no way he can run, but it's more than just that, guys, just more than that. And this, whatever they decide, is actually other options there as well. But I'll continue on here.
By the Constitution. So this is something that would be far out of reach by any measure. And again, President Trump insisting for right now, he's focused on his current job.
So when Trump does stuff like this, he's doing this in a way that is multi-purposed. And I'm going to walk you through this. But right now, let's talk about, before we get into that, my speculation and why I think this is such a brilliant move of what they're doing. And other Democrats will say, as you'll see later on, that this is actually a brilliant, genius move. And that is this here. This is called the Third Term Project. And this is brought up by a guy named Andy Ogles. And he said that he introduced this here. This is actually an actual bill. So Randy Ogles said in this particular tweet, I just introduced a resolution to amend the 22nd Amendment to allow President Trump to seek a third term. Read the details. So here it says here, maybe we can jump on it here. I don't know if we can read it here. Maybe we can. Essentially, what it is it's going to allow, I'll paraphrase. Essentially, what this bill is, essentially, is going to allow the president to serve more than 2 terms if the first term was not contiguous. In other words, there was a term in between. And the only time this ever happened was Grover Cleveland. Trump was the only other person to have that. So obviously, this is something that they're looking at. But there's also the thought, well, I'll get to that in a second here. The other pathway is that's the third term project. The other scenario is something called the VP ticket strategy. And this VP ticket strategy is simply that Trump runs as VP with Vance on the ticket. And after the election, they swap, which is another way they're talking about it. The other way, well, this is an interpretation loophole saying that the 22nd Amendment bans consecutive terms, not consecutive terms. So the VP strategy is one. That's probably the easiest way. You have a Vance Trump ticket. Vance wins because everyone knows what's going down. They know what's going on, and then they switch over. And Trump, or he becomes the Vance basically quits or resigns his office. Trump becomes president as the vice president, and then he appoints Vice President Vance as the vice president. Gerald Ford essentially was never elected, so that's a precedent there. And we know about Richard Nixon, who resigned as well, and putting actually Ford in there. So that has happened in the past. And the other one would be the interpretation loophole saying that the 22nd Amendment bans consecutive terms, not consecutive multiple terms. So that's also interesting. Now, the media melts down over these legal theories, but won't admit it's possible, and it is possible. And here is actually why this is actually brilliant. And even if it never happens, it doesn't even matter if it happens. This is why this is so cool, because Trump derangement syndrome is such a big deal with these leftists. I mean, we're now seeing it with Elon Musk, the Elon Musk derangement syndrome, or the Musk derangement syndrome, however you want to say it. These people are just bat-ass crazy. They are. And Trump knows that. And as a negotiator, he has to know. He has to know that if you give up your hand in the negotiation table, then you're done. I mean, he knows about gambling, about poker, because he ran casinos. If you're running a tournament and you're in the tournament and you're doing, let's say, Texas Hold'em or any kind of poker for that matter, and you have a really, really bad hand, but for some reason you're waiting for 4th Street or 5th Street because your flop was terrible. I mean, this is poker terms, but basically you're waiting, you're hedging, hoping to get that inside straight or that flush or whatever, and you are being bet into it, and you become pot committed because you're pushing your chips in more than you need to, and now you have to go all in because you're so in. You have to go all the way in. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. The math doesn't work out. But yet you let people know that you have nothing. So they're going to keep betting and betting and betting and pushing you all the way in until you are out of the tournament. That's what Trump is doing. And it's quite clear. And he's done it to this point and it's worked effectively. And we're going to get into some polling numbers, which are crazy. We saw in the actual clip there where they were talking about, we're not talking about Signal anymore. Signalgate, how that was the whole, supposed to be a big deal. We talked about this last week, about how this called Signal, which was a messaging app, CIA, intelligence officials, and all this stuff. And there was a report in there as well. That war plans were released in terms of putting our soldiers at risk and leaking classified information into the ether in front of a journalist, which would be grounds for pretty much treason if you want to go by the letter of the law. But they don't care about what Biden did or does or did, but that's like neither here nor there. So they were trying to make this into a mountain, but it was less than a molehill. No secret information was let out. There was no personnel who were threatened. The paper that put this out, if I remember them correctly, I can't remember the outlet, but they admitted that it was not real information, and it kind of blew up in their face, and no one really cared about it. It was a big nothing burger. But they were hoping beyond hope that they could do something with this to lower Trump's popularity, because that's what Chuck Schumer said. He said, we're going to try and lower Trump's popularity. And I also think, I mentioned this before, that they're going to try and get Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, out of there, and also possibly try and get rid of Signal as a approved tool for the government and for the intelligence agencies. Now, if you're not familiar with Signal, it is a end-to-end encrypted solution that makes it impossible to intercept that and decode it. I mean, you can probably grab the signal, but you can't code it. It's like 256 hash algorithm. That's SHA hash algorithm, which is the same algorithm used for the blockchain for cryptocurrency. So yeah, it's not getting broken anytime soon, if ever. And it would take you like 1,000 years, running 1 billion computers at the same time. Not going to happen. But because it was open source and they can't mess with it, they can't spy on the president. And that's basically what it comes down to. So that all blew up. So getting back to all this, Trump's popularity is just as high as it's been before. And we'll get into this when we get into part 4 of this segment of Trump's approval ratings, which you have to check these out. In fact, I have it right here, but I won't show you yet. I'll keep going here a little bit. So this is the deal here, guys. This is where it gets interesting. All right. So even if Trump doesn't become a second term on this second go around, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter at all. Because, like I said before, he's trying to destroy the Democrat Party. And even teasing the, I guess in this case, third term would put them under the boots. I mean, under his heels. And here's why. So what Trump was doing was he's trying, I believe, that he's trying to protect the lame duck curse. The lame duck curse is essentially the third. I'm saying third term. I'm saying third term because it's Trump. No, it's in Trump's case. Normally, a president who runs for re-election gets the first term, and contiguously, here he runs for a second term. All right, and second term, because there's term limits on the president, lobbyists dry up. Because they know you're not going to be around. Congress knows you're not going to be around. Everyone knows you're not going to be around. So essentially, you only have until the midterms to get your stuff done, which is why Trump has been trying to run this thing on, steroids, because he knows 18 months is pretty much all the time he has before he becomes a lame duck president. Whereas no one really takes you seriously. You don't get agendas passed. So what Trump is trying to do here by invoking this third term, tease, it's a brilliant political strategy because he's going to protect that lame duck curse. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a little bit. I won't do it now, but I'll tell you in the segment later when I go on locals for the private supporters only stream, which I'll do right after this. I'm going to give you the top 5 second terms in history. Now, I've said before that this is back in 2020, that Trump would have the greatest second term in the history of the country, which really isn't saying much. It's not, because most second terms are bad, horrible. Even the best ones. Even George Washington's second term wasn't perfect. By the time George Washington left the White House, a large majority were fed up with him, didn't like him. They were shunning him. They criticized him. They talked bad about him. And he was pretty unpopular when he left the White House. It wasn't until he actually passed away, and I believe it was 1799, where people, of course, remembered the time where he brought this country through to its creation. But even he had a horrible second term. So, but I think Trump would have done that. Now, when he lost in 2020, I thought, well, I guess that's it. I guess he won't have that. Only to find out that he has a second term right now. So I am still standing by that. I think if Trump continues on with the way he's going right now, and especially if you add the fact of this protection of this lame duck curse here, then I think he's going to do it even better than he would have done in 2020. I don't think I'll get any objections here. Second terms are historically bad. Even Reagan's was bad. If you saw the movie Reagan, which was good, it wasn't bad. It was just, it could have been much better. He had the Iran-Contra and some other things too. Some, there's other things going on there as well. His Alzheimer's and other things that were happening there. I think inflation was kicking up a little bit. because they're spending from the defense. But he did take out the Russians, so that was the Soviet Union. So that was why his second term was actually good, but it wasn't great, in my opinion. Presidents lose their political leverage when re-election is off the table. They can't have leverage. And Trump has to have this leverage because he is a negotiator. In fact, I think Trump will be called the great negotiator. I really do. I think that may be his title, like Trump, the great negotiator, similarly to Ronald Reagan being the great communicator. We shall see. See, Congress doesn't have term limits, as I mentioned before. The Congress always holds power. And here's another thing that happens here when he does this, is that this tease flips this dynamic of this lame duck scenario where he keeps his donors loyal. He keeps challengers guessing, Vivek or anyone else who wants to come up, or even JD for that matter, keeps them at bay, keeps the media focused on him. And another thing that happens is that it's going to keep the media and the Democrats in absolute fear mode. They're not going to talk about issues, not that they could anyway, but they're going to continue doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this derangement syndrome, which is going to continue to push a wedge between the average working class person away from them. And the more they do these Tesla protests where they scratch up a car or spray paint something on it, which is derogatory or offensive, or burn dealerships or whatever they want to do, or this is something happened in New Mexico. The Republican headquarters got burned down. What's up with that? The more they try to obstruct, say, hey, oh yeah, Mr. illegal terrorist guy who came across the border and has been deported 20 times, and you've committed like 400 crimes in our country, he should be allowed to stay. He should get due process. He should be allowed to all this. And that just makes the average American who has common sense utterly upset and, frankly, pissed off. In fact, I'm going to read a tweet that I have here. I'm going to pull it up real quickly. I had it on True Social. I wasn't prepared to say this, but I'm going to pull it up here. And I'm going to read it out because I think it's true. I got to go down a little bit to find it. Let me do that first, and I will share the screen. Here it is. Let me share this. Actually, I'll just read it to you. I'll read it to you. The quote is this. No, I'll show it to you. I want to see it on the screen. So let me just do this, and I'll just, I never should have got rid of the screen to begin with, but I did. All right, there it is. You see on the screen right there, Truth Social. I said this earlier. I said Trump won on a mandate. And as long as he keeps delivering on his campaign promises, while the irrational left fights him with protests and activist judges, he'll stay around 50% approval. Voters aren't blaming him. They're getting mad at the Democrats. And that's what I want to get into right now. I want to talk about these polls, which are absolutely insane. Check this out. Wow. So this is post Signalgate, right? Check this out. You have CBS, Trump at 50%. RMG, which is Rasmussen, 50%. YouGov, which is pretty liberal, 48%. Qantas, also pretty liberal. That is 49%. And RMG is, I got that wrong. RMG is 52% and Rasmussen is 50%. My notes are backwards. So that's incredible. We have not seen numbers from Trump like that. Ever. And post the Epstein file kind of bad PR thing with the binders, and now with the Signal nothing burger, but still got a lot of press. Whenever I have some of my black friends tweeting me or texting me talking about, Kyle, what's up with this? What has Trump done now? I have to take time away from myself. I have to sit down, look at it, and then formulate a response so that they don't freak out, because my Black Republican friends, they have a nightmare to deal with their circle of influence. Me personally, I've kicked most of all my liberal Black friends to the curb. I don't deal with them anymore because I don't have time for it. It's just, I don't have time for that. I have my videos. I have one video, which I'll share with you quickly. It's basically a 2-question test. And I'll let you I'll put a link in the description. But it's a 2-question test I give to every single Black person who comes to me whining and complaining about the Republican Party and this and that. I said, look, if you can answer these 2 questions, I will leave the Republican Party today. And this video is about 8 minutes, 7 minutes long or such. I go through it all, and I have yet to have anybody do it. There's a website, an email address. You can reply back to me. Give me those answers to that question, and I will quit the entire channel. I won't vote for Trump anymore. I'll be done. But those 2 questions that I put out there on that video can't be answered. So in other words, my argument is there is no reason whatsoever that a Black person should vote for a Democrat. Period. So here you have CBS 50, Rasmussen 50, RMG 52, YouGov 48, Quinnipiac 49. Now, one thing that is true with Trump that we've seen for years is that Trump outperforms his polling. And this comes down mainly because of the type of person that's going to be voting for Trump. These people, as I mentioned before, I've said this blue in the face, is that we are low propensity voters, meaning we only vote 1 out of the last 4 elections. 0 or 1 out of the last 4 elections. That used to be Democrats, which is why they used to have these campaigns like P. Diddy would do, like, vote or die, and all these stupid campaigns with the celebrities coming up there, getting low information people who have barely any clue about policies or issues. All they're doing is acting on their own emotion, and they're being reactionary, and they are shills for whatever the media tells them. We saw that with 2020, injecting things in our body and getting a donut for that. Driving up to a medical facility, sticking your arm out of the window to a complete stranger, getting something put in your body, which is experimental, and then you get a donut and you get a sticker. And then you go on to Instagram or you go on to Facebook and you put a little banner up, and now you're socially acceptable now. All right? That's the kind of mindset and mentality that people are. Now, I can't really knock, I'm not going to come out and just knock those people 100%. Because frankly, I was pretty scared myself. And I'll be transparent here. I'm kind of a germaphobe. I don't like, I like to use the napkin to open doorknobs. Even before COVID, I didn't care. You sneeze in front of me, I'm like running the other way. So when this went down, I was like, oh snap. Okay, let's be careful with this. I had my gloves, my sanitizer, and all that stuff, because we were told back then that, hey, was it 2 weeks to curb it? So I took that seriously. So I said, I'm gonna do my part. Have my gloves on. I remember that. Mask, all that. But when the 2 weeks were over and they doubled down and things start changing in terms of the narrative and how they, oh yeah, we said this, but we really meant that, and then we meant this, then we really meant that. I'm like, okay, guys, I was done. I was angry because I realized what was happening. And so those people who were caught in the early goings, I get it. I was part of that too. But the point is, even beyond that, let's take that out of the picture. Let's look at something just as simple as, I don't want to go George Floyd because that's a little bit too raw still. You could take something like, what's a good narrative? I'm thinking Trayvon Martin, but that's not a good one either. But You could probably think of several narratives that have been out there that have been. Oh, here's a good one. Here's a good one. Here's a great one. Hands up, don't shoot. That's a great one. Great one. Because the Attorney General even admitted under Obama that that was a falsehood. The physical evidence in hands up, don't shoot proved that that was not the case. But yet people still went with that. And they still acted on those narratives. And people like LeBron James with his low, I would say IQ, but that would be impertinent. I would say his low information in terms of knowledge and voting, and particularly when it comes to reading, because when you see him reading a good book, it's usually on the first page. You see those memes where he's like, got the autobiography of Malcolm X, it's like on the first page, and another book's on the first page. It's just for show, it's propaganda. But even he used his platform to project the fact that, oh man, black people, man, we being hunted down. We being hunted down. The cops are getting up in the morning, stretching. Oh, I'm gonna go arrest me a black man today. I mean, come on, man. I mean, that's the narrative that they want you to think. And we had a whole thing on that too. We had a 60-second clip that we did, short, which I may actually add to the intro to these videos, which basically says why cops are not the reason why this is going down. I mean, there are reasons why black people are arrested at a higher rate. It's just factual. And there's also a reason why the FBI statistics under Biden were suppressed, why crime statistics were suppressed, because they knew the narrative didn't fit the actual facts. It's just mind-boggling what they say and do. But the fact is, people don't listen to facts. They are pretty much bent on what they believe, and anything that they don't believe, well, if it comes to them, I'm talking about these people, these leftists in general, people who just don't want to know anything differently, then they flee. Cognitive dissonance sets in, and then they just fight it. And then they attack you, they call you names and the whole nine. So that is what's going on there. But right now, people know that Trump is trying to do his best. They see the media and they see these protesters. They see these activist judges that are appointed by Biden and Obama, and they're seeing issues that they agree with at 90%, 80%, 70% level that they want because he won on a mandate, and they're upset by it because it's being thwarted. So all that's going to happen, like I said before, in this particular Truth Social, is that they're going to get angry at Democrats. They're not going to blame Trump. And why is this important to this conversation? Is because if they blame Democrats, then why not give him more time? Why not? If he spends 4 years fighting judges, fighting Supreme Courts, fighting protesters, fighting all this stuff, fighting Congress, fighting rhinos within his own party who don't want to back him up on this stuff, on the spending or whatever he has, then why not give him 4 more years? Why not? Why not? I think the public sentiment would be perfectly okay with that. So that's why the Democrats really have a hard time with this in general. And one more thing I want to say here, this is an important rule to understand, is that Trump, I mentioned this before, I didn't go through this more, but he always outperforms his polling. And the reason why I kind of got off on a tangent here, but he outperforms his polling because of low propensity voters and because they don't go to the polls that much. But when the election day comes, they do show up. They just don't poll because they don't answer the phone calls. They don't listen to texts. None of that. Robocalls, forget that. It's not going to work. But they will show up. So if Trump's on the ticket, it does much better for us. Until our coalition can learn over maybe a generation or two to go to the polls and vote. We're seeing now in Wisconsin, which I haven't prepared to talk about yet. We may talk about tomorrow since the election is tomorrow. That's a big deal. And the reason why the numbers are low in Wisconsin in terms of the odds data, in terms of the projections I saw on On Point Politics, it doesn't look good. It looks like we're going to lose Wisconsin. And I hate to say that because that's bad. but maybe it will shock the people who voted for Trump to realize, look, guys, every election, even special elections, matter. Even though Trump isn't on the ticket, it still matters. And I hope it doesn't hurt us too much, but if we were to lose 2 seats in Wisconsin, that would hurt. But I think we have a more of a shot of winning more than 2 seats in general. I think we're gonna have a stronger wave based on what I'm seeing now. Anyway, so I don't think it's gonna be the end of the world, but it's not gonna be good. It's definitely going to give them momentum, and it's going to give them the news cycle for 3 to 4 weeks. It's going to embolden Democrats. It's going to raise funding. It's going to be a nightmare. And we're going to have to fight harder. But it is what it is. We're going to have to get out and we're going to have to vote. And I hate to pass on that bad news, but I think that's what's going to happen tomorrow. So we will report on that as our live stream is going on during Wisconsin Supreme Court election tomorrow. So let me see if there's anybody on here who's actually putting any. Okay, okay, so we have a question here. So let me put this on the screen before I go into my next segment. Yes, exactly. It's a win-win for Trump. It's a win-win. Personally, I don't think he wants a third term. I don't. I don't think he wants it. I think he wants to. I think J.D. Vance can do a fantastic job on his own. So I don't think he wants it, but he's playing the cards close to his chest. He's putting it out there as he's serious and getting them freaked out and off message. And this is just classic politics, man. Classic politics. I mean, it's brilliant strategy. It's brilliant strategy. Now, it may not help with Wisconsin. It may get the vote out in Wisconsin, but I think long term, I think that would definitely help us. Okay, so in terms of, thank you, man, and a half for that. In terms of polling, I said before that he outperforms his polling. So if you look at, let's go back to his polling numbers here. Just have it on the screen. Take a look at this here. And so let's look at, I guess, CBS at 50%. He outperforms his poll anywhere from 1 to 2%. So 50% is really looking like 52%. RMG is looking at 54%. Rasmussen, which is very accurate, they do a daily poll. That puts him at about 52%. Quinnipiac poll puts him over 51%, around 51%. And YouGov at about 50%. So if he's polling at 48 to 52%, he's actually polling anywhere from 50 to 55%. Even in the worst case poll, shows him, which YouGov is horrible. YouGov is horrible. Has him at 48%, which translates to an electoral landslide victory. So basically, if the election were held today, this is the takeaway. He'd blow out the opposition. It would be a destruction. If that was the case, I won't pull it up here, but let me just tell you right now, he would win New Mexico. He would win New Hampshire. He would win all the swing states that he won before. He would win Minnesota. He would carry Georgia. He would probably even come within a point of carrying New Jersey. He would probably come within at least 3 points or 4 points of carrying New York. California, he'd probably be within 7 of California. It would be a bloodbath of epic proportions based on the polling numbers today. And so that's what they're really freaking out about. And since we're talking about that, let's get into the fifth part of the segment. Let's talk about the 2024 election breakdown. Let me see if I have anything here. I have an article here. Let me share this here real quick. I have this I don't know if I want to talk about this, but this is from Newsweek. It's Donald Trump's pathways to a third term. Oh, okay. This is Sean O'Driscoll. Who's the other one here? Okay, we have two articles I want to go over first. Let's go over this one first from Sean O'Driscoll. And he's saying here that it matters because a legal expert told Newsweek there are am I sharing that? I'm not sharing that, am I? Let me share this. Sorry, guys. There it is. All right, so A legal expert told Newsweek there are a number of routes that Trump could take to legally take a third term. He could become the first U.S. president to serve a third term since the 22nd Amendment was ratified in 1951, a set of two-term limits on all presidents. I think we already talked about this a little bit. Yeah, we talked about this already. So, okay, so the Vance presidency. Trump can be nominated as the vice president with Vance nominated to be president. If the vice president ticket wins, Vance resigns. We went over that. The president, vice president resignation. The second workaround this, Vance runs for president and someone else on the ticket for vice president may be Don Jr. They win. Don Jr. quits and Vance picks Trump to be his vice president with Senate confirmation. So Trump is not elected to do anything, not even vice president. Then Vance quits and Trump becomes president. Now, I don't think that's very likely because that might destroy Vance's electability going forward. I don't see him doing that. The fact that it's possible is all that matters. That's all we need. We just need a possibility. What's that? Dumb and Dumber? Where he says, so you're saying it's a chance. And that's all we need. A constitutional amendment, which probably will never happen because it takes 2/3 of the states to ratify it. Well, no. 2/3 of state legislators, which we already pretty much have that anyway. Pretty close to that. I'm not sure exactly how close we are to 2/3 having it as a majority in terms of state legislators. We had a big majority in 2016 and 2020 for that matter. Goes on here to say what happens next. Yeah, we kind of covered that. So let's go to this next article here. This was more interesting because this is actually the left freaking out and saying basically what I'm saying here. And that is that Trump's third term tease is a brilliant political strategy. This is Myra Adams of The Hill. She is not a conservative. She's a liberal. And so let's just go through this a little bit. She goes to say, last month's Conservative Political Action Conference, that's called CPAC, all right, was a Trumpalooza love fest celebrating the 47th president. In addition to on-stage theatrics, Elon Musk wielding a chainsaw, Steve Bannon. Okay, all right, and it wasn't. This is all wrong anyway. Okay, let's see here. The mission of a third-term project is to support a proposed constitutional amendment. Third-term project CPAC's debut was comical and historically ironic. Its banners display a profile bust of President Trump in a classic ancient Roman style. Let's get going here. Where is she talking about his here? It says here, but count on Trump to involve himself because a third-term tease talk supports a Machiavellian strategy boosting what appears to be his insatiable quest for expanded power. Given the political reality that Trump is a time-limited lame duck, the prospect of a third term helps downplay the inevitable 2029 expiration date on his political career, all the while continuing to rule through fear, demanding absolute loyalty among friends and foes. Now, they're making Trump seem like, what am I saying here? They want to act like Trump is some sort of dictator or some wielding power. But you know what? Every great president has done this. Have you seen the movie Lincoln, that Steven Spielberg movie? I mean, growing up, I always thought, Lincoln was like, was it Henry Fonda who played my young Abe Lincoln, or the various Lincolns that you've seen in the past. They're meek, they're mild, they're pretty well tempered, but not the Daniel Day-Lewis version. The Daniel Day-Lewis version of Lincoln, and by the way, I've read several books on Lincoln, including the book that it was inspired by. It's called Rivals, I believe. It's Team of Rivals. Team of Rivals was the name of the book that it was based on. I read that book. It's fantastic. Talks about his cabinet and how he basically surrounded his people like Stanton and like Seward. I believe Chase was part of his cabinet too. I may be wrong about Chase, but those guys weren't buddy with Lincoln. But when he died, they wept profusely. Edward Stanton, Secretary of War, wept profusely, and he couldn't stand Lincoln early on. But what Lincoln did was that he welded his power. That scene when he's in that dark cabinet room and he's shaking his fist and saying, "You or you and you, I am the President of the United States in minced in immaculate power. Get those votes. Give me those votes." I mean, he was welding his power. He was buying off congressmen left and right, political favors, of course. That's what you do. As an executive, you get stuff done. You don't think FDR welded power? You don't think Teddy Roosevelt, who said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick," didn't weld power? You think Lyndon Baines Johnson, who would stand over people, giving them the business, talking about, giving him he would cuss people out. Lyndon Baines Johnson would cuss people out to their face. He was like 6 foot something, and he would lean over people and intimidate them through the force of his will to make them do what he wanted them to do because he's scared of them. That's what they do. And to kind of sort of subtly paint this as Trump's trying to say, "Well, I'm going to, welding his, saying his, let me get the words here. His insatiable quest for expanded power." Look, guys, since when had the Democrats ever cared about expanding power? If it's any president whatsoever that expanded power more than anybody, it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag right here. We're working on a project. It's going to be about 6 or 7 months where we're going to rank all the presidents of the United States from 1 to 46. I won't do Trump on the second term. The greatest presidents. And it's a very, 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 very tough thing to do. Very tough. Because there's so many different factions in that. And as much as I would like to like FDR for his, whether you like him or not, I don't like him personally in terms of him in some ways, but as a wartime president, if you toss out all the conspiracies about other things, Pearl Harbor, but on its surface, FDR was a fantastic wartime president. He helped carry the water for Great Britain, and he held them to stuff where he gave them material, but at the same time he talked opposite in the media. He gave them what they wanted, but he talked tough against Great Britain in public because he didn't want to seem like we were on their side. All the while, he was making Great Britain pay for whatever we sent them. So, and he had those fireside chats, and he kept peace down. Kept the confidence down. People felt confident under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and that is something to be said about that. However, his programs in this country, his works program, of course, his New Deal, all that stuff, was an absolute nightmare. And that's one of the reasons why we're in the situation we're in now. And with Truman, with the 3 other organizations coming up out of there as well, I like Truman too, but the swamp got so much bigger under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But my point is, one of the greatest presidents that the Democrats love, they love FDR. Expanded power probably more than any president did in the time he was in office. And so all of a sudden, in this paragraph, his insatiable quest for expanded power. What expanded power? He has right now with these judges, where they are now. What power does he have? What power does he have? They are thwarting just about every single thing that he's trying to put across these judges. How about the insatiable power of these leftist judges who want to obstruct this district court judge in Pango, who wasn't elected by anybody hardly, is going to speak for everyone in the United States? Are you kidding me? Over a branch where he has no jurisdiction over? Give me a break. So stuff like this is classic slanted journalism. But nevertheless, let's keep going. She goes on. Let me see. Yep. So third term talks keep 2028 Republican wannabes off balance so that Trump remains more powerful. I just love this language. I just love this language. More powerful. So what? More powerful is a relative term because right now he ain't that powerful. How about more powerful, meaning that the judges are stop doing their activism? How about that? Let's see how powerful Trump acts if all the judges just sit back and let him do what he needs to do. See, by Trump having to circumvent these laws by pulling out the Alien and Sedition Act out of something that's been around for 180 years or more, it looks like he's going for more power, but he's just simply trying to circumvent his power that he already has vested in him. He has a plenary duty and authority to do all the things that he's doing. Not to mention he got a mandate, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. These polling numbers and the election numbers from 2024 is going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. And here we go. Let's talk about this right now. Let's forget her. I think we've covered most of this already. I'm going to jump into this in general and just go over some of these numbers here. And I have actually a spreadsheet here. I'm going to pull this up. I'm really getting hot here. I'm getting hot because the more I think about this, the more it just makes my blood boil. So anyway, let me just share this. I got it right here. My goodness. Yeah. So I got a spreadsheet here. I'm just going to read this to you guys. So this is essentially the popular vote victory. I want to put it up here just so you can see for yourself. This essentially is 2024. And just look at these numbers. Look at these numbers and you tell me what you think about this. Was this not a mandate? I mean, it was a mandate. I mean, I haven't seen in my lifetime. No, I have seen Reagan. I lived through Reagan, so I saw that more in my lifetime, but not since Reagan. And before that, Nixon. So no. So here we go. Here we have Trump won the popular vote. The first Republican to do so in 20 years. He won 77 million plus votes. He beat Kamala by 2 million votes plus. Swing state sweep. He got all the swing states, which were 7 of them. It's so shocking that even Rosie O'Donnell questioned it publicly. Rosie was like, nobody can sweep all the swing states. So now she's thinking it's a conspiracy. The Electoral College, he won 212, which we called 2 days before the election. We called that exactly. That's 6 more than he won in 2016. The first president to win Nevada. Did I lose my thing here? Okay, still up? Okay, yeah. All right, so first president to win Nevada since 2004. The county shifts, and this is where it gets interesting. 89% of U.S. counties move toward Trump. The New York Times confirms this. I don't have a subscription to the New York Times, so I can't show you, but that's the case. Check this out. Demographic shifts or gains. Black majority counties, 25% shifted 4 points to Trump. Latino majority counties shifted 10 points to Trump. So I grew up in a black majority county. That's Prince George's County in Maryland. It's a black county. And it's a very wealthy county. It's, in fact, it is the wealthiest black county in the entire country. You have to go to California and Beverly Hills to find something second. But if you look at the top 10 areas in the country for black people, 8 of them or 9 of them are in PG County. So that's shifted 4 points to Trump. So that means PG County shifted 4 points to Trump, which is, to me, is incredible. Counties in general that were 50% less white shifted 7 points to Trump. So counties that were less white than 0.5%, in other words, the minority of the population are white. I'm imagining maybe Durham County in North Carolina may qualify. I'm not sure about that. But that shifted 7 points for Trump. College grad counties where more than 50% are college graduates shifted 4 points to Trump. Now, you know how they always talk about how the coastal elites on either coast that, well, the Massachusetts or the Oregons or the, Beverly Hills, all that are the elites of the coastal elites. And a lot of those people have a college degree, and that demographic in general goes to liberals because I would say, brainwashed in the university system that they go to, which is why I'm really excited. The fact that the Department of Education is being revamped, because we talked about that before, about how 79 was when the Department of Education was founded, and how we no longer were seeing a shift towards a classical liberal education, meaning the way the framers thought education should be, that it isn't our purpose to train our kids to just learn to read and write. I mean, that's important, but it's to learn how to think. It's to learn how to love for the things that you should love, and hate the things that you shouldn't love. You should look out for things that are good and wholesome and patriotic, and do that, and reject the others. We're trying to become better people in general. That's what the education system is supposed to be about, to think rationally and logically, and be able to reason and argue in a debate standpoint without having a meltdown. That is what the classical education that this country was founded on and went on for decades and decades. When the Department of Education came online in 79, that stopped. Now you have a group of people who are not educated, but they're indoctrinated with a philosophy that no, classical education is not what we're going to deal with, or strive to be, or strive to be. No, we're going to be activists who are going to defend the state, because that's who gives us our rights and our power and our existence. It's the government. It's the state. So, and that's where we are. And that's where you end up having elections like we've had. And that's why the college graduates in general were leaning to Democrats and liberals and leftists for that very reason. They're activists. All right, let's keep going. The smart voter shifts. Urban counties shifted 5 points towards Trump. Suburban counties, white women shifted 4 points to Trump. State by state momentum. Trump improved margins listen to this. Trump improved margins in 48 out of 50 states compared to 2020. Only 2 states didn't shift further red. Now, initially, I thought that was the case. I think these states are Washington, and I want to say Utah, I believe. But that's incredible. And that, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, that is absolutely a mandate. So it was not a comeback. It was a total realignment. This was a realignment. Yes, he came back from everything he came back from. But at the end of the day, Trump had a massive political realignment that was earth-shattering, something we haven't seen since Reagan. And most people who are watching this weren't alive then. Weren't alive. You aren't as old as I am, so you would not have known that or even appreciated it. In fact, I was young and I couldn't really even appreciate it. I just remember seeing the news where Reagan won all the states. And back then, Reagan was blue on the maps on TV. The Democrats were red and the Republicans were blue. That didn't happen until a little bit later after that. But I remember him basically winning everything, except for, I think, Minnesota and D.C. So it wasn't just a victory. It was a fundamental rejection of the left's cultural, economic, and political dominance. So, all right. So I have a part 6 here. I got to go to my other screen here because my printout got messed up. So I'm going to read it from here. I got it up on my screen here. All right. So Trump's first term was essentially under siege. And that's why all this matters. All right. The reason why all this matters is because Trump's first term was under siege. You had Robert Mueller. You had the probe. You had rhinos like Paul Ryan, McConnell. You had no allies. People were laughing behind his back saying, hey, you're a clown. You don't know DC. We'll give you your 4 years and we'll whatever. They had spies everywhere in his cabinet. And what I found out from interviews that came out, and from people that I know that were in the White House as well, that essentially Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. were actually, I'm getting this from Rich Barris, by the way. I'm getting this from Rich Barris, his podcast. I think I have a link if you go to our locals, our private section, our supporter section. I have these articles and these videos earmarked and bookmarked, so you can reference this yourself to see for yourself. But this is the Rich Barris podcast. He's a pollster, big data polling, fantastic, one of the most accurate pollsters out there. He basically said, from other people, that Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. were on Trump's short list to be on his cabinet in 2017, January. But he was told by many other insiders that he should not have them. Reince Priebus was his first, I believe that was his first oh gosh, what's this person called? Head of the White House, Chief of Staff. And Reince Priebus is about as establishment as you can get. Now, I don't have anything necessarily against him anymore because he's still doing a pretty good job as a surrogate for the MAGA movement. He did pretty good on election night, pretty well on election night as well. And Reince Priebus, despite some of the things that he has negative about him, he really helped carry us in Wisconsin. I mean, without him, I don't think we carried Wisconsin in 2016. But he was also a swamp creature as well. He was his chief of staff. As your chief of staff, you gotta be tight, like in the West Wing, like Leo. If you watch the West Wing, Leo was a great chief of staff. And Wiles, I saw her interview, chief of staff, current chief of staff now. I watched that interview, and Susie Wiles is just phenomenal. She is phenomenal. I am so happy that she's in there. I didn't realize that she is the daughter of the late Pat Summerall, same guy who co-hosted NFL on Fox and CBS with John Madden, the late John Madden. So as a football fan, that really endears me to her even more. But tough lady, tough as nails, and she's loyal. And Trump didn't have that. You had Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, recused himself, allowing lawfare to take over. Didn't have his back. Trump's second term, his current second term is dominant. Outsiders have become insiders. MAGA loyalists are now embedded in D.C., whereas before he didn't have that. Trump holds more political power now than he did in 2016. And a third term, to wrap it up and close it out, a third term tease essentially extends the momentum into 2028. Again, it keeps the donors on board. It blocks early GOP hopefuls from jumping ship. It keeps them loyal, because if he's going to be president again, they're going to stick on board. And like Man have said, it drives the media crazy, and it keeps them off balance. They're not talking about Biden's failures. They're talking about Trump, and they're basically creating more of a wedge amongst the people in this country who actually have a brain cell. All right, now I am done that segment. That's a long segment, probably the longest segment we've ever done on this channel. And because my notes are all jacked up here, I'm gonna have to wing it on this next one, which is fine because I can do this next one without really good notes because there's not these stats on any of this stuff. So I can just kind of wing it, which is fine because I'm going to be reading some of the articles anyway. So yeah, let's just do that. So let me take a quick drink here real quickly. All right, I'm not going to take a break here. I'm going to keep going. Right now we're about an hour, 15 minutes in. Wow. Woo. Long segment. Long segment. Tell you what, guys, let me do one thing here. Let me, if I can find something else here. I want to do something here. If I can find my page. Hold on. I found it. I'm gonna do a plug. Here. So this will be my break, I guess. So I'm gonna do a plug, and this is good stuff here. Really good stuff. And so this is 1775 coffee, where coffee is not for the weak. And at Rumble, weak has never been part of the mission. No fillers, no fraud, and no settling for mediocrity. Just like 17